Can they hear me? Can they hear me live out there? Next beat. That ain't the beat I want to do.
Those was wood
another
beats
beat.
right
Another
there.
beat.
You know?
Nope. Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope. That's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up.
Oh, word.
Turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can you make it louder than my headphones? Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, nanny ghosts, Velas, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working or hustling to get it, or get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bank out, cause you don't wanna get caught at mom's crib or at Vaughn's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode number 101 of the X-Cast. I'm your host, Josh Houslander. With me, as always, Adam Hernandez. It's day 5414 in the search for Tim Shovelday. How's it going, Adam?
Good. How about you?
Good. We just had a cool show a little bit ago. If you guys, I don't know if you're just joining us now or if you are sticking around from the Loud State, where we had X-Ray Mary on as a guest, or half of X-Ray Mary, a couple members from the band call in. Fun show. If you're into some of the, indie music, definitely maybe check that out. They're a cool couple of guys and, kind of cool band.
They're not indie rock. It's just independent music.
Right.
Careful when you're throwing around the indie thing.
Sorry,
Josh.
I know. I should have cleared that with Adam first. He is the music genre expert. I am merely
not an
novice.
expert. Just.
Oh, you're an expert.
No, I'm not an expert.
Well, okay. Adam is a self-proclaimed non-expert, but I am definitely a novice at it. So, but yeah, cool show. I don't know. So, thank you for sticking around. If you're, left over from the Loud State. And if you're not, maybe check that out. Maybe don't. Thanks for joining us here in the X-Cast. Got a couple of things to kind of kick around, talk about today. I know it's weird to plug, if you will, or talk about another radio show or another podcast while you're on a podcast, because I guess you're technically talking about your competitors.
Well, is this a podcast or is it? Is it a podcast?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was an actual like radio show.
It is, and it's for people here in the Detroit area, and maybe even people out of the Detroit area. We had Drew and Mike here on the radio for many, many years. It was just a huge radio staple, and quite frankly, I'll be a slappy here and say they were, a huge influence on me for wanting to, do radio, do podcasting. They went off the air years ago, and then Drew did a podcast called the Drew and Mike Podcast. But over the last couple of weeks here in Detroit, we've had kind of a cool resurgence of kind of some retro names, if not retro styling, and that's WLLZ, Wheels, which was the huge radio station when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. And they brought Wheels back, and one of the first things Wheels did when they came back was brought the Drew and Mike Show back. Mike has passed away, but they still call it the Drew and Mike Show. And that was so exciting for me to have that brought back, to have Drew and Mike brought back, but also just to have Wheels brought back. And I know that a lot of our viewers aren't in the Detroit area, but that's just really cool. It's one of those things where something goes away that you thought was gone forever, and then when it comes back, you're just kind of shocked by it. So I've been really digging listening to Wheels, and although the Drew and Mike Show never technically left, it's been in podcast form, and I've caught it from time to time. I, for one, like listening to stuff like that on terrestrial radio, too. So it was really cool. They're back on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And what's kind of interesting, the reason I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit tonight is because Drew and Mike were one of my big influences in wanting to do stuff like this. And for Adam, one of his biggest influences, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, is Howard Stern. Right?
No, Howard is the king of all media. He is the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. To quote the great Bret the Hitman Hart. I wasn't a Drew and Mike fan. It's not just I just really never listened to him. And I know that may be kind of odd just because I've lived in Detroit my whole life, and
Sure.
it seems like everybody, their grandmother, their grandfather, their mom, dad, sister, aunt, uncle, all listen to Drew and Mike. I just never did. I'll tell you what, though.
And there's a reason for that, too. We can get to it, but...
like I said, I'm a Howard Stern fan.
Exactly. And
yeah.
when we were younger, there wasn't podcasts, there wasn't things like
Yeah,
that. They were on at the same time.
Yeah, they were on at the same time.
So you're only going to be listening to one
Yeah.
if you were here in Detroit back then.
But Jesus Christ, what they ended up replacing Drew and Mike with,
Oh, my God.
and I'll go ahead and say it, Dave and Chuck the Freak is some of the worst fucking garbage that you will ever listen to on the radio.
It is.
First of all, I don't
man.
understand how anybody over the age of 14 can fucking stand listening to that utter trash. But Dave and Chuck the Freak, you guys fucking blow.
Yeah, and listen, Dave and Chuck the Freak are the guys that they've been around forever too, because they're from here in Detroit. You get a lot of Canadian stations.
They
too.
were on 89X,
Right.
yep, and then for some, and then 101 WRF, who had Drew and Mike on forever.
Yeah,
really.
Can, Drew and Mike, and threw.
Yeah,
threw them on.
they wanted to get younger, but apparently they wanted to go and chase after that 12-year-old demographic there. And look, I'm not opposed to dick and fart jokes.
Yeah.
I'm really not. But Dave and Chuck the Freak is, I would say, 95% dick and fart jokes, and it's fucking
They're
stupid.
not usually good ones either.
No, they're fucking lame. I mean,
I-
if you like forced laughs and dick and fart jokes, sorry, Josh, then go ahead, listen to Dave and Chuck the Freak.
Well, and the issue too that when Adam and I are talking, we just came clean and said some of our radio icons are Drew and Mike and Howard Stern. It's not like they don't tell dick and fart
No.
jokes on Howard Stern
No.
and on the Drew and Mike show. It is not devoid of
Absolutely not.
of classic dick and fart humor. It is all over the place, in fact. But no, Dave and Chuck the Freak, maybe they're good people. I don't know. They obviously have somewhat of a following here in the Detroit area because they've been around, but they're terrible. And when I have flipped them on in recent years, even though Drew and Mike have been gone for years now. I mean, back now, and that's cool. On Saturdays and Sundays, not on weekdays anymore. But still to this day, when I flip on Dave and Chuck the Freak, I just think I cannot believe they took Drew and Mike off the air for these guys.
No, and you know what people are gonna say too, Josh, when they hear this, be like, oh, you guys are just jealous. They're on the radio, and you're just doing a stupid podcast. Okay, if that's the route you want to go, fine. But you know what? There's plenty of other terrestrial radio shows and satellite radio shows out there that I'm not particularly a fan of, but I can respect what they do.
Absolutely.
I don't respect what Dave and Chuck the Freak do at all. Like I said, I think they suck. And you know what? To tell the truth, I really wouldn't want to be in radio. It's a cutthroat business, and there's no good security in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could probably ask any radio guy, aside from Howard Stern and Drew and Mike. Well, Drew, that is, since Mike has passed on. But it's cutthroat. I mean, you could be on 1 minute and then off the air, a week later.
Oh yeah, I mean,
It's-
Drew and Mike are evidence of that. They were
Yeah.
they were the biggest thing around, and then all of a sudden, they're getting rid of them, really? And
Yeah.
nobody's even picking them up.
Yeah.
That's
Any
insane.
local radio guy would be able to tell you that it's radio is an extremely tough business to get into. So
And the thing is now, we listen to radio differently now. Not everybody, there is still terrestrial radio, and I'm glad for that because I still love terrestrial radio.
I hate it, Josh.
Do ya?
I hate terrestrial radio. I'm not
I
bashing.
I mostly listen to national shows though, not.
Okay,
not our
okay,
local.
well, fair enough. National shows are going to be on satellite probably too.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me, I've transitioned to, mainly just podcasts.
Sure.
I mean, podcasts, I mean, it's, I don't want to, try to, toot our own medium here, but it's, terrestrial radio has become, and in some cases satellite, and, with some shows, it's become too corporate. It's become too, commercialized. It's just not good.
People love to rag on podcasts too, but what I always find funny is that the guys on pretty much everybody on terrestrial radio now also has a podcast.
Yeah.
They either release their show on podcast form or they do a podcast in addition to their terrestrial show. So if it sucks so bad, how come you have to be involved?
And you know what, too? My radio hero, Howard Stern, trashes on podcasts all the time.
He does. And Drew made reference to that.
Yeah, he trashes on it all the fucking time. And it's funny because, like, I'll listen to it with my wife and she'll just be giving me this look about, with Howard Stern trashing. I don't want to speak for the king or anything like that. And, forgive me, but I think Howard just trashes just because I don't think he fully understands it all that much. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think podcasts would be, yes, you're right. Howard Stern technically has podcasts because you could say that any recorded material after the fact
right.
that you put up for download is essentially like podcasts, and Howard Stern does have that. So
right.
He does do podcasts. But Howard Stern is the perfect guy to continue his career as a podcaster.
Right. Oh, totally.
I mean, just, he could be retired yet still, have a show whenever he wants. Mm-hmm. And he certainly has enough money to kind of open up his own little studio and just go from there and still get as many guests as he wants because
he's still Howard Stern.
Yeah, who out there wouldn't want to go on the Howard Stern show?
Yeah. Yeah, the only people that won't go on the Howard Stern show are the people that he's pissed off.
And you know what? I mean, it's been so long since he's pissed off somebody that he would still be able to get, tons of people to come on and even make money at it, too, if he wanted to.
Well, it's kind of funny when Howard rags on podcasting because he rags on it because he happens to have this whole media empire and he doesn't need to podcast. But we all know that if Howard came into existence 20 years after he did, that he'd have been a podcaster.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been on terrestrial radio. He would have been podcasting. Like I mentioned, we talk about, we listen to radio so much differently now than we used to because of the podcasting thing, because of satellite. Kind of like how we watch TV too. We watch TV, it's DVR'd. But back in the day, I was a Drew and Mike fan. Adam was a Howard Stern fan. It was because here in Detroit, they were on at the exact same time.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you were going to put in a analog tape and hit record at 7 a.m. every morning.
Which is something Josh very well could have done.
Maybe.
Which he probably still does now.
Maybe, from time to time. But unless you were going to do that, you couldn't listen to both of them.
No, you couldn't.
I used to listen to Drew and Mike, and then I knew Howard Stern because I used to watch his show on E, his TV show on E. So that's where I knew him, and I liked his movie and stuff. But one of the things I thought was kind of funny about this was that 2 weeks ago, Drew is talking about how he's become this Howard Stern fan, and he's talking up Howard and saying like, oh, I read his books and I listened to this, and he's really like I really love the way he's transitioned, and I love his old stuff, but I kind of like his new stuff, and I really appreciate his following. And he's really kind of talking him up, and as I'm listening to it, I was like, God, I wonder if Drew knows how much Howard Stern used to rag on Drew and Mike back in the day. Because he used to all the time. And Howard used to actually accuse Drew and Mike in Detroit of ripping off his show. All the time. And I remember thinking at the time, like, does he really think that they, like, record his show and then listen to it and then sit around and talk like, how can we rip off Howard?
Probably.
But I feel like Howard used to just do that to just kind of like, because he used to do it to a bunch of people. Who's the guy? Mancow, was that one of them?
Yeah, Mancow.
And a few of the other ones. Bob and Tom were another, I think, syndicated one that were around. So I'm thinking that 2 weeks ago, and I'm listening to Drew talk about that, and then sure enough, somebody must have brought it to his attention, because somebody else must have brought it to his attention because Drew started talking about like, oh, I guess I didn't realize how much Howard used to rag on us. And he actually played some of the old tapes of Howard ragging on him from years ago. And it was pretty funny. And with that being said, that was all many years ago when Mike passed away. Howard actually gave a really
yeah, he did. I remember hearing it.
He gave said some really kind words about Mike, and that was a shame. Mike wasn't. He was a young man. It was a shame he passed. Broke my heart. But I just thought that was funny to hear. Especially since Adam and I are constantly on air together, and I just. He knows how much I love Drew and Mike, and I know how much he loves Howard, and to just kind of hear them talking about each other was fun.
You know what that probably was, though, too? I mean, especially at the time. I mean, Howard Stern wasn't on satellite. I mean, he was on terrestrial radio, and he was, Detroit, big market. Mm-hmm. So he's probably trying to tap into that market a little bit more by trying to relate to its listeners. And, Howard used to be in Detroit. I mean, he used to be based out of Detroit. He was on it's W4 Country now, but at the time he was on a rock station here, and it was
still W4. Yeah, it was WWWW.
Yeah, and so I mean that was my guess, and of course, it's every man for himself when it comes to that sort of thing.
Well, and Howard, his shows wildly successful, nationwide, worldwide, but he never really did that well in Detroit because you could always find him here. He was always on somewhere. 97.1 usually it was the big one, but even after that, he was even on AM here at one point, syndicated.
Was he?
I believe so. I'm almost positive on that. But Howard never did as great in Detroit because of Drew and Mike, because we happened to have a local show that had a huge following, and
that wasn't really just. Detroit has always been more of a local,
definitely
more local oriented when it comes to their programming. Even when it comes to like sports stuff too. Definitely. I know 97.1 tried to do the national sports show in the morning. It just didn't work out. People wanted to hear a local show, which is something they ended up doing. But yeah, I think that's more so the case, throughout the different genres of radio.
That's definitely true here in Detroit. With the terrestrial radio, with it's hugely true in sports. It's true in politics as well. There's stations where you can find some of the big name political hosts, usually the conservative guys, are usually kind of dominate the AM. And you can definitely Rush Limbaugh's on.
Was he WJR?
He's on WJR, but WJR is almost all local stuff except for Rush Limbaugh.
Is it?
And here you can tune into, I think, like 1400 AM, 1600 AM. So you can, the signal's not great, but you can hear guys, Glenn Beck and Dennis Prager and Hugh Hewitt and guys like that. But I love Dennis Prager's show, actually. He does a great show, I think. Nothing like this show would be, I don't know that the audiences would be comparable, but I love Dennis Prager's show. He's actually a radio hero of mine as well. I just like how he's known mostly as a political show, but it's a lot of philosophy, a lot of things like that are discussed on his program, which is what I like. He does his happiness hour and things like that. Very cool show. If you're into that, if you're into that. But no, it's true. National guys who are highly successful have always had trouble gaining ground here in Detroit, for sure. But again, I know it's weird to be talking about other shows and plugging other shows, but I don't know. I don't think we're losing. We don't have. We do all right. We're trying to, do as well as we can here in the Empire Media, but we're not comparing much to Drew and Mike and Howard Stern.
No, definitely not.
No, I'd take 1/10 of their numbers, and be largely happy with that.
And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, unless you got some more to add to that.
No. Baba Booey.
You know what? Drew actually played that as well. And I loved it when Drew was playing that too, because Howard's ragging on him so hard, this old tape of him ragging on Drew and Mike. And most of it, Drew's like that. No, I didn't. That is not true. But there's a few things Drew's like, there's some truth in that one. There's a little bit of truth there, because and one of the things was, remember the old O.J. Simpson tape where the guy from Howard calls in and says "Baba Booey" at the end. And Drew and Mike had played that. But everybody played that. I mean, that was all over the place. You know, every radio station was playing that. And Howard made a comment about, like, oh, they're even just playing my tapes directly. Well, everybody did. It was a famous thing. And Drew was kind of like, well, there's some truth to that. And then they played it, the O.J. Simpson thing, where he throws out the Baba Booey at the end. And who's he talking to that is totally buying it? I mean, he's talking to some newscast.
Oh, I can't remember.
Who's totally buying it. And then somebody else comes on and is like, oh, that was a fake call.
I can't remember. Did they throw in Howard Stern's penis too?
I know they play the thing where the are you bigger than 7 inches or whatever it is that that the Howard people used to always throw out. And that's what Drew is saying. He's like, yeah, we played that stuff. It's like, everybody played that stuff.
I can't remember if that was...
It's national news. It's
yeah,
hilarious.
I can't remember if that was Joey Boots or not. It probably wasn't, but Joey Boots was the late Joey Boots was one of the guys that would always go around, New York and, find local broadcasts, and just do the Baba Booey, Howard Stern's penis in the background, and it was great.
Well, and isn't that the one, like, isn't he being pulled out or something, and that's, like, the last question he, like, gets to ask.
It's been so long.
As they're pulling him out, it's like, are you bigger than 7 inches?
It's been so I can't remember.
It's so dumb, but it's so funny. I mean, what's he call his people, or the whack pack?
The whack pack.
Okay, yeah.
Not everybody's in the whack pack. I mean, there's my favorite whack packer is Eric the Midget. Rest in peace. I think he died back in 2014. But I mean that'd be Eric the Midget. Wendy the retard, Gary the retard, who they call Gary the Conqueror, and Wendy the slow adult now. Jeff the drunk, High Pitch Eric.
I remember High Pitch Eric.
Yeah. So I mean, there's tons of them. Hank the Angry Dwarf was a big famous one too. Beetlejuice. All of them great in their own right though.
Yeah, that was the old call where Howard's ragging on them is he's got this guy on who used to call in to Drew and Mike from time to time, and he's like being like a traitor basically, like outing Drew and Mike. But this dude's acting like he was like a legitimate part of the show, not just a guy that
He's a legitimate part of
the Drew and Mike show.
Oh, okay.
And that he was like had insider information, and Drew's like I talked to this guy like he was a prank caller that we would like have like on the show. It wasn't like he was employed by our show or something, but it was funny.
That's when terrestrial radio was truly great.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. I mean, now it's gone in so many different directions now.
It has now, and they've like so many other things in this world. They took the fun out of it, out of a lot of it. And even to this day, when when Drew calls somebody, and they've been doing this for years, and I don't mean to speak for him. I'm not trying to be like the lawyer guy who was acting like he was speaking for him from the show over the weekend, but they'll call somebody and they'll instantly say, like, yeah, this is Drew from the Drew and Mike Show in Detroit. Like real quick, because you have to now. You get in trouble.
Yeah.
If, with the FCC or whoever it is that's busting your balls these days. If you don't say that you're from a show from wherever, you get in trouble. Mm-hmm. So, it ruins it. And that goes back to, I know I'm definitely showing my age here with, and talking about terrestrial radio, and people out there aren't going to know what I'm talking about, but Dick Burton here in Detroit was a famous one that he used to just prank call people, basically, just used to call, but he used to not say who he really was. He used to pretend like he was somebody different for the sake of the phone call, for the sake of humor for the listeners, but you're not allowed to do that anymore.
God, fuck the FCC.
I know, so it sucks. It's
Jesus.
like you can't call there. And hey, that's where, look what radio did. You know, the FCC and other things screwed up terrestrial radio so bad that we basically had to do podcasts.
Had to do podcasts, and satellite came around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we never had to worry about that when we were starting out on Detroit Rowdy Radio, because we could just call and say we were whatever we wanted and tell people that, your ex-boyfriend gave me AIDS or whatever we used to do here on Detroit Rowdy Radio back in the day. And again, I would never try to compare what we've done in radio, even though I'm proud of it, to what, guys like Drew and Mike or Howard Stern especially have done. But when Drew was talking about the evolution of Howard Stern's show, and then that kind of made me think about the evolution of Drew and Mike's show over the years and what it's become, and how they just kind of have a following that just sticks with them. And for the most part, it's a show about a show. The show isn't really even about anything anymore. It's just about them. It's the same following they've had for years. And again, I would kill for that following, but it got me thinking about me and you, Adam, and like the show we try to do now, where sure we're still goofy and we, do goofy things, but our old show on Detroit Rowdy Radio was just, it was filth.
Yeah, it was.
It was fun. Don't get me wrong. I hope people enjoyed it then, and I hope maybe even people still, since the World Wide Web has made everything available forever.
Unfortunately.
Maybe unfortunately.
For everybody.
Yeah, maybe unfortunately, but I hope maybe people still tune into that old crap every once in a while and get a kick out of it, because some of that stuff was, it was pretty damn funny that we used to do. So if you ever are in desperate need of potty humor, turn off Dave and Chuck the Freak and go listen to some old Detroit Rowdy Radio.
Listen to some good dick and fart jokes.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then you recently sent me a thing about somebody being arrested for selling a fart in a jar, selling their farts in a jar.
I think that was from last year, though.
Yeah, I think it was, because I remember seeing it before, but you had recently sent me something about it, and I was just like, oh man, I'm glad we got away scot-free, because we used to do that on Detroit Rowdy Radio.
You know what, though? Didn't we sell it on eBay, though? I think we're good selling it on eBay, so you don't need a vendor license to sell anything on eBay. Oh,
okay. Is that why that dude got popped?
Yeah, because he didn't have a vendor license.
Oh, jeez. Statism. Yeah, that was... I was... The thing that shocked me about that at the time was discovering that it worked, that you could, bottle a fart. Yeah,
because didn't we make Nick smell it or something?
Yeah, just the tissue paper we farted on.
Oh God, not we. It was you that farted.
Me. Well, hey, I was just trying to give credit where credit was due.
Classic Growdy episode.
Yeah, definitely. Switching gears. So my buddy Justin Amash in Michigan.
What a gear switch there.
Yeah. He you look at the evolution of radio and how they've gone away from trying to penalize you for for your dick and fart jokes, but then the evolution of politics, and it seems like maybe it's in desperate need of dick and fart jokes. I feel like politics is kind of a big dick and fart joke at this point. But Justin Amash got in some trouble, because he actually kind of is on board with the Dems and thinks maybe the Trump impeachment thing isn't that out of line.
I wouldn't say he's on board with the Dems, because there's plenty of Democratic congressmen out there and congresswomen that don't quite support impeachment yet.
Nancy Pelosi being one of them.
Yes, probably the most important one to support or not support impeachment, Nancy Pelosi. But yeah, Justin Amash, Republican House member from the western side of Michigan.
Kind of known for being a small L libertarian Republican.
Yep, he is. He basically came out, and I'm going to try to find the tweet that kind of set everything off. And here it is right here. And he went through, he read the unredacted Mueller report, and he basically comes out and says that his principal conclusions are, quote unquote, principal conclusions, and this is from his Twitter account here. Attorney General Barr has deliberately misrepresented Mueller's report. President Trump has engaged in impeachable conduct. Partisanship has eroded our systems of checks and balances, and few members of Congress have read the report. He goes on to say, I offer these conclusions only after having read Mueller's redacted report carefully and completely, having read or watched pertinent statements and testimony, and having discussed this matter with my staff who thoroughly reviewed materials and provided me further analysis. In comparing Barr's principal conclusions, congressional testimony, and other statements to Mueller's report, it is clear that Barr intended to mislead the public about Special Counsel Robert Mueller's analysis and findings. Barr's misrepresentations are significant but often subtle, frequently taking the form of sleight of hand qualifications or logical fallacies, which he hopes people will not notice. Under our Constitution, the president shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. While high crimes and misdemeanors is not defined, the context implies conduct that violates the public trust. Contrary to Barr's portrayal, Mueller's report reveals that President Trump engaged in specific actions and a pattern of behavior that meet the threshold for impeachment. And he goes on. I mean, it's just tweet after tweet after tweet. And this is something that Justin Amash has really made a name for himself for. Mm-hmm. Not so much this, but going on his social media accounts and explaining every vote that he's conducted.
Yeah.
He's been real transparent when it comes to this sort of thing. And I'm not a Justin Amash fan by any means. He is, though, in my opinion, one of the few conservatives left in on Capitol Hill. And what I mean by that is he's a guy. First of all, he's a Republican congressman. He's part of the Freedom Caucus, which is supposed to be a staunch conservative group within the legislative branch of government. And he is a guy that is a fiscal hawk. He's not a guy that goes out there and wants to spend a bunch of money on anything. He is a traditional right-leaning libertarian. And you don't see that.
Small government Republican.
Yeah, and you don't, and not to say that it's I'm not a big state type of guy myself, but I mean, that's something that the Republican Party has really morphed into now, is a party that is big government, big spending. And
yeah, absolutely.
And some people may be okay with that, and if that's what you believe, then fine.
Sure.
But if you're a Republican out there, Republican who is a supporter of Donald Trump, and you go on and you say that that you are for small government, if you're for being fiscally conservative in terms of the old, traditional conservatives go,
Reagan-esque conservatism,
yeah, then
if you will.
You're lying to yourself. You can't be a Donald Trump supporter and that at the same time. You just can't.
I agree. I mean, you can, but your
lying to
ideology's
yourself.
off.
Yeah, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
But I mean, I guess, good for Justin Amash to kind of step outside the the Trump box here, because
he's definitely not afraid to take the positions that are not popular.
No, and this is significant too, because it's not. I mean, it's not just it's not just Democrats calling for impeachment here. I mean, here you have a Republican House member who is saying that Donald Trump did commit impeachable acts. So,
well, and a lot of people. I'm a big Justin Amash fan. I'm a big Rand Paul fan too. These guys are, known as being kind of the more libertarian members of the Republican Party. And what happens a lot of times is you'll have people say, well, why are they in the Republican Party? They're libertarians. They should just be libertarians. And I think in the debates, granted the debates were largely, pardon the pun, trumped by Donald Trump's antics
Yeah.
last time, but Rand Paul was trying very hard to make the point that, yeah, I love liberty, but I'm not a libertarian. I'm actually conservative. I'm the only conservative up here. You know, you guys are trying to, they're basically, he's saying that, you know, you're acting like I'm not conservative enough. I'm the only one up here who's conservative. And I don't know if, in that instance, if Rand Paul and Justin Amash's definition of conservatism is right or not. If it's conservative or libertarian or what ideology it necessarily is. I know I like it a lot better. I know I agree with it a lot more. But, you know, I'm not sure. You know, historically, when you look at it, yeah, right now, 2019, and this has been true for the last 40 years or so, yeah, there's a place for small government people, much more of a place for small government people in the Republican Party than there is in the Democratic Party. But truth be told, going back to its founding in the 1850s, the Republicans have never been a small government party. They really haven't been. They've never really even been a conservative party. There's conservatives in it, you know, definitely, but they've never actually been a conservative party or a small government party. I mean, just, you know, maybe more so than the Democrats, but that's not saying that much.
I know it doesn't, because I mean it just goes along with the metamorphosis of political parties within you know, the United States system of government and just history. I mean, what Democrat out there is pro-slavery now?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, none directly, but I sometimes think that they are.
Okay, African slavery.
Yes, there's nobody out there trying to push for the African slave trade to come back.
No,
no, that is definitely not a thing.
And that's something that Democrats used to be for.
Right.
Hey, we'll own black people. That's fine. That's part of, you know, how things were, you know, came to fruition in the United States. Owning black people. I mean, that's
right. Just like neither party is for prohibition of alcohol, right?
No.
Although sometimes you wonder if they would be, if you know, if they could be. But one thing I always find this fascinating, for lack of a better word. But you know, Justin Amash is making the claim that people haven't actually read the report, and I don't know if that's true with the Mueller report. It probably is, but I'm always shocked to hear that how many members of Congress haven't read something that they're speaking about or voting on. It is absolutely shocking.
Or they just have their staff read it.
Yeah, it's
filming in on the details.
I'm sorry, call me old-fashioned, but I know that congressmen and senators are busy people. I know that, but
that's what they.
You should be reading every single goddamn thing.
Yeah, that's what that
is out there.
Yeah, that's what we. You know, that's what the government takes money out of our taxes for.
Right. You'll have people like Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer who have said, well, it was too long to read before I had to, you know, vote on it. Okay, well, then there's several problems there. Either, first of all, I'm thinking, I don't really care if you have to stay up all night reading it. You know, that's kind of your job.
You can catch up. You can catch up on your sleep during one of the 10 vacations you have.
Exactly.
You know, throughout the year.
Like I don't care. Read it. And if it's so long that you can't read it, well, then it's too long for you to be voting on it. Then it needs to be simplified. But every citizen out there should have the right to read these things. But I don't expect every single citizen to read it, and I don't expect every single citizen to understand it if they did read it. But you, as a senator, as a congressman, congresswoman, I don't care.
It's not the citizen's job to
You better be
reading
it, and you better understand it. One of my favorite, you know, Ron Paul quips of all time is when Ron Paul was asked, how come you're the only no vote on so many different bills over the years? And Ron Paul's response was, I actually read them. That's why I vote no on them, because I actually read it. Oh, and I don't... It's unacceptable to me. The idea that this stuff comes out, that they're talking about it on the news, and that these people haven't read it. whether it's a bill, whether it's a report, redacted, unredacted, I don't care. Don't care. It's just not right. It's just not right. And if there's excuses for it, because there's no reason for it, but there's excuses for it. It was too long. We didn't have time. Well, then something needs to be remedied. Then you need to work faster, work better, take more time.
This is a pretty big report, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like this is a report on, on some mundane thing within government. And we know there's plenty of mundane things within government. I mean, this was a report on, on whether or not, the President of the United States colluded with a foreign entity and obstructed justice. Yeah. I mean, how much more important does it get than that? Right.
Well, and my thing is, whether it's the Mueller report, whether it's Obamacare, whether it's, what was Nancy Pelosi's famous line? We got to pass it first, then we'll find out what's in it. Listen, if the thing you're voting on, the thing you're doing, the thing that is being discussed in the media and in Congress and amongst the people, if that particular thing takes 4 days to read, then you shouldn't be discussing it after 48 hours. I don't care if all of Congress says, all right, well, we're adjourned for the next for the next week, so everyone can read this piece of crap. If that's how you have to do it, then do it that way. And maybe that'll make them be like, oh, let's not make these things so long if we actually have to read them. But they want them long because they want them to not make sense to the average person.
I don't know about that. I mean, length to me doesn't matter. I mean, it's are you getting everything in that you need to get in? And again, it's not the job of the people to not in a republic. Mm-hmm. It's not their job to read it. It's not their job to understand it. I mean, that's why we live in this godforsaken system of government.
Right.
I mean,
they're supposed to be looking out for us.
Yeah, I mean, people, go to vote because they're supposed to elect representatives to represent them. I mean, that's what's supposed to happen in this shitty form of government that we have.
Right. Do you know what one of my biggest pet peeves is, Adam, when it comes to this? Is when you hear people say, well, it's your duty as a citizen to be informed about this stuff. And when I hear that, and you're talking about somebody that I really do try to be very informed, because I think it's better to be informed.
No, if you're being informed, you're going the extra mile, and that's great.
Right, exactly. But when people say it's your duty, I say bullshit. It is not your duty. You are actually supposed to be protected by our laws and our government, whether you pay attention or not. You don't have to vote. You don't have to pay attention. That doesn't make you less of a citizen or less of a human being because you would rather pay attention to Game of Thrones or the NBA playoffs or whatever the hell else is going on, or maybe just your own family. You know what? Maybe you're just not the smartest person around. Mm-hmm. Really? Maybe you're not this. Maybe you don't get it. Maybe you don't want to get it. Maybe you couldn't get it if you did want to. Doesn't matter.
No.
It's not your job. It's not your duty. It's their duty. It's their job. And it literally is their job. They are paid to do it. They chose to run for that office. And then some people chose to vote for them or vote against them. Mm-hmm. So it is truly their duty, because, well, it's a duty because they swore, to uphold the Constitution and the laws and, to do what is best for their constituents. And it is their job because they're literally paid to do it.
Yeah.
It's literally how they put food on their table. Or, well, food's probably already on the table, but they, how they fill their bank accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, they get paid. They get paid well.
Yeah, between that and lobbying and.
They get paid well. They
get paid too well.
They do get paid too well. Do you know what I thought was kind of weird? Is I heard some people, mostly Republicans, criticizing Joe Biden for being a millionaire. Oh,
wait, should we finish up this impeachment thing first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean,
if you got more to add.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think the more that I'm beginning to really, I mean, especially now, just because there's been so much discourse and partisanship and so on and so forth since Donald Trump has been elected. I mean, there was a lot during Obama, but things have skyrocketed since Donald Trump's election, and some of it may be justified, some of it may not be. But the more you become in tune with the United States' system of government, the more you learn about how pointless a lot of aspects of it are. And I'm going to point out two things. One is impeachment, and one are congressional subpoenas. I'll start off with the subpoena or the impeachment first, because impeachments are pretty useless and they're pretty meaningless in the long of short of things. Just because, first of all, look what happened to Bill Clinton back in the late 90s when he was impeached. He was impeached, wasn't removed from office, and it didn't hurt him at all.
No, it really didn't.
It didn't. It helped him. This time around, if they go and they impeach Donald Trump, and I hear people on the left talking about this all the time, I, for one, couldn't give two shits about him being impeached. And in fact, if I'm a Democratic advisor, I'm going to say don't impeach him.
Yeah, no, I think Nancy Pelosi is right.
Yeah, if you want to have any hope at 2020, you don't impeach Donald Trump. You don't impeach him unless you know you're going to remove him from office when it comes to those Senate hearings. And they're not. The senators, there's still a Republican majority in the Senate, and all of them are still on Team Trump, and they're not going to remove him from office. So what the fuck is the point?
Right.
What, to give him a public slap on the wrist? You're impeached. Okay, so what? Now I have a talking point. Now I have another talking point when it comes to the elections. And Democrats will go on and say, well, we have a talking point against you, too. We impeached you from... Okay, you impeached me. Great. Great. Who cares? It doesn't mean anything. There is no meaning whatsoever when it comes to impeachment. If you remove from office, there's some meaning. There's some substance. And again, we could go on and on about, whether or not this type of government should be changed, whether or not, the people should elect senators and so on and so forth. Because maybe if the people didn't elect senators, then maybe there would be a different opinion among those Republican senators when it comes to impeachment. Yet a lot of them are still concerned with their own constituents and whether or not they're going to be elected in their own home states. But that's that's probably more of a discussion for Politics of the Empire than this show.
Sure.
And I, for one, just like I said, I think the entire system of government within the United States is completely batshit crazy and just backwards, and it's not working for anybody anymore.
Some of the things, I think anyway, me personally, some of the things in our system, constitutionally or just that have been adopted through the system, many of them, such as impeachment, such as let's throw out a few more examples, filibustering, such as overruling a presidential veto. Many of these things were worthwhile back before the system was so polarized, politicized, and corrupt.
And I think that's what
it's so corrupt that it doesn't work anymore.
And I think that's what Justin Amash is talking about too. In fact, I don't know. I don't think I know that's what Justin Amash is talking about. But I mean, I think you're right, Josh. But that just goes to show that the problems, all of the problems, and I guess you can go on and say no system of government is perfect, and there's an argument to be made there. But we're running into a very real problem right now within this type of system, this type of government.
Right.
And like I said, I think impeachments are useless unless you can actually remove from office. I think congressional subpoenas are useless as well. Yeah. Sure. I mean, if Josh was subpoenaed by the House Judicial Committee, or if I was, or if Dorff was, or whoever, then we have to show up.
Yeah.
Or else, you know what? We're probably going to get thrown in jail.
Right.
William Barr's not showing up.
Yeah.
Don McGahn's not showing up, and why? Because there are political elites, people.
Yep. No, it's true.
They are political elites, and do you think that's what the founding fathers initially intended? Maybe.
No, I doubt it.
Maybe.
I really don't think so.
But you know what? What kind of government is that then? When the leaders don't have to abide by their own set of rules, yet if the common man was subpoenaed and chose not to show up,
you have a warrant out for your arrest.
yeah,
they know where you live. They're coming to get you.
Yeah, they're coming to get you. They're coming to throw you in jail probably that night.
Right. Yeah, you think if Barr gets pulled over for a speeding
exactly.
violation tomorrow, that they're going to say you didn't show up for a subpoena, you have a warrant out for your arrest, and they're going to take him into jail and throw him in the drunk tank.
Fuck no, they're not. You know,
but what would happen to you?
Oh, we'd be thrown in jail.
And that was and you didn't not show up to a congressional subpoena. What happens when friend of the court subpoenas you because you have an issue with
child support payments
with child
or
support. What happens when you have a reckless driving ticket that you got pulled over for and didn't show up to the court date, and then you get pulled over for rolling through a stop sign?
Yeah.
You're going to jail, man.
Yeah.
You're going to jail. I mean, not for life or anything, but you're getting your car's getting towed, you're being handcuffed, you're being taken to jail, and your life is being
shit on.
Yeah, that is a lousy month for 99% of the people in America. Yep. That is going to screw you up financially, and in myriad ways that will screw you up. But no, that doesn't happen to political elites.
No,
not at all.
Or even elites for that matter in this
doesn't.
country.
No,
I mean, it's just bullshit. It's bullshit, and it just shows that there is no substance behind a lot of these things, whether it's impeachment or whether it's congressional subpoenas to certain people. That is,
sure.
Again, I mean, William Barr, he could toss it aside, toss it in the trash. Hey, I'm not gonna come to that.
Yeah, it's really what it boils down to is the system is silly. No.
It is.
And as we know, no president has ever been impeached and then removed from office. But if you look back in the 1860s, when Andrew Johnson was impeached, I feel like there was a legitimate discussion. Does this man need to be removed from office? Let's impeach him and discuss it. Mm-hmm. That is what the system was supposed to do. Impeaching is not taking you out of office, but it is discussing it. And it's not discussing it directly on, down party lines. And those who know their history, I wish I knew the guy's name off the top of my head. I can't remember it. But Andrew Johnson was not removed from office by one vote. They thought they had the votes, but he was not removed. It was a Republican. It was the opposite party who changed his mind at the last minute. Mm-hmm. He was a staunch hater of Andrew Johnson. He couldn't stand him. But he, at the last minute, said, I would be voting for removal because I dislike him.
Yeah.
I would be voting for removal because I disagree with him politically. And truth be told, by my constitutional duty, he should not be removed.
Yeah.
He shouldn't be. So he changed his vote.
And you know what, too, Josh? This goes both ways, too. I mean, because
sure.
you can't tell me that the neoliberals in on the Democratic side wouldn't do the same exact thing if a Democrat was in office,
of course.
was president of the United States, and was undergoing this type of scrutiny, and in large part.
Mm-hmm. You know what? Due to
their own doing.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what I feel bad for in this Trump debacle, and going back a couple decades ago to the Bill Clinton debacle? Do you know what I feel bad for? Richard Nixon. If Richard Nixon would have, he stepped down because it was like, well, it looks like I'm going to be impeached, so I'm going to step down because I don't want to be removed from office. Looking back at history, he probably wouldn't have been removed from office.
Well, not now.
No, but even then, he probably wouldn't have been. He probably, at the end of the day, he would have gotten impeached. It would have been similar to what happened to Bill Clinton.
I don't know.
He probably wouldn't have been removed.
I mean, I don't want to go as far as saying that, Josh, but I will say that if Richard Nixon was president now, yeah, he probably wouldn't be impeached.
Well, I would hope not.
And he most certainly wouldn't be removed from office.
I would hope not, because the political crimes that Richard Nixon was most certainly guilty of, the political crimes he committed pale in comparison to that which has been done by Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. They pale in comparison. When you look back at the Watergate scandal and exactly what that was, and it was a scandal, and he was a crook, all that stuff, when you look back at it, it's not that big a deal. It's not even that big a deal. You know, the four presidents I just named all have 2 or 3 things at least that are worse than Watergate.
I don't know about that, but again, topic for a different show.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I definitely would say so. But that's, you know, I'm fairly certain, and I can't prove it. No one can prove it.
I mean,
right or
Trump
wrong,
and Nixon are both accused of obstructing justice. I mean,
yeah, no,
nice.
that yeah, that's fine.
Anyways,
I don't think that Richard Nixon would have been removed from office.
I know you're a big Nixon fan.
No, I'm not a big Nixon fan at all, actually.
You and Roger Stone.
Strangely, again, about Nixon is, you know...
Do you have a Richard Nixon tattoo on your back like
No.
Roger Stone?
No, I do not.
Ron Paul?
If I was going to get it... I like Rand Paul better than Ron Paul.
Do you?
Yes, which I know like makes me a pariah.
Well, I know you kind of do your hair like Rand Paul a little bit.
I wish I had his. I wish I had Rand Paul's hair. I mean, I try to emulate the style, but it's not quite there. Richard Nixon was. I dislike him because when you look at him politically, he was one of the most progressive, leftist, you could argue, presidents we've ever had. You know, I mean, I know they were their party affiliation doesn't show this, but Richard Nixon was certainly to the left of Jimmy Carter.
How so?
Foreign policy, domestic policy too, for that matter. Big government. Surveillance for sure.
I don't necessarily think that that's a leftist thing. I think that's his domestic policies. A lot of them were probably more liberal, in terms of
certainly to the left of John F. Kennedy.
In terms of neoliberalism, as far as foreign policy, most certainly was a neoconservative. I mean, without a doubt.
And I'm not somebody. I definitely am not on board with the whole the Republicans and Democrats switched, because that's a silly statement that's made a lot, that is oversimplifying a change in a lot of issues. But if in 2019 with their exact politics, Richard Nixon is definitely a Democrat and John F. Kennedy is definitely a Republican. And that's I would hope that Richard Nixon would just be,
not running for office.
Yeah, not anything. But I mean, JFK certainly wouldn't be welcome in the Democratic Party with his views. No, but
I don't know. Ronald Reagan would be welcomed in the Republican Party
right now under a Trump Republic. I don't know what the future holds for the Republican Party. No, I mean, I really don't. The Republicans like to compare Donald Trump to Ronald Reagan, which I find laughable and hilarious. They have virtually nothing in common at all, except that Republicans liked them. I mean, that is the only thing they share at all.
What are you going to say about Joe Biden, though?
I dislike the criticism of Joe Biden because I just feel like people maybe don't understand basic economics when they're making this criticism. And that's the idea that, how is Joe Biden a millionaire after being a politician? He must be corrupt. Like, okay, you realize that we, the American people, have paid Joe Biden 6 figures for the last 50 years, right? That's a pretty good gig. If you're making 6 figures for 45 years and you're 74 years old, if you're not a millionaire, you're stupid, okay? So this criticism that Joe Biden is corrupt because he's a millionaire is really stupid. I really, like, if you're sitting around right now and, like, your dad, your mom or dad has been making six figures for 45 years and they're broke and you have no inheritance coming, then your parents did something really stupid, okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say that's they screwed up, whether it was, bad luck or they did something dumb or they just made mistakes here, economic mistakes. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. It does happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. But I would hope that Joe Biden would be a millionaire at this point.
Well, I mean, he's like you said.
Being in Congress it's a pretty good gig. It's a pretty good gig.
It's too good of a gig.
Yeah. I mean, for if nothing else, as Vice President of the United States, as a man in his 60s as Vice President of the United States, he made well into the six figures for those 8 years while everything was paid for.
Yeah.
You're actually not even allowed to touch that money. It just is going into a bank. So, yeah, he better be a millionaire. Just from what he got paid as Vice President. He should be a millionaire. So, you Republicans out there using this talking point, it's dumb. Okay? It's dumb. Cut it out.
I know we're gonna be talking about socialism and everything next week when during Politics of the Empire, and I know a lot of people will rag on on socialism or socialists living in the United States or living in the United Kingdom and talking about, hey, well, should you be making money if you're a socialist? It's like, come on, you have to, if somebody is a socialist and they're living in a capitalist form of government, they have to make a living for themselves. They have to, they have to create a way for themselves to live in a capitalist form of government. I know people have, ragged on Bernie Sanders for, being a millionaire himself. And a lot of the times too, I mean, you can equate that to what happened with Joe Biden. But again, and I'm going to save this a little bit for next week.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to comment on it. I'll save it for next week.
Bernie Sanders, I mean, that's the definition between a democratic socialist and a socialist too, in terms of politics go and viewpoints. And again, we'll talk about them next week.
For sure. No, I just I don't know. I don't fault people for having some money, and I just, like I said, and how much do you get paid as a congressman? It's over $100,000, right?
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what, the president's like $450, I think. The vice president is a little less than that. Senator is less than that, and then even a base congressman. But I would hope that, I hope these guys know how to, like, buy stocks and bonds and would, know, like, how to be good with your money. I would hope that people we're entrusting to run our country are smart enough to get a high yield on their bank account or have a money market account. I would hope so.
I think there's plenty wrong with this, and again, we'll probably get into it more next week during Politics of the Empire. But I just think it's funny. Republicans are the ones that are hurling these criticisms.
Well, I kind of get it towards Bernie Sanders, and we'll talk about that later because he is such a proud socialist, albeit democratic socialist. But Joe Biden's not.
No.
Joe Biden isn't a socialist.
Or a democratic socialist.
No, neither of those things. So I really don't understand that. Again, I would hope that guys in position of power would know how to get a money market account, know how to invest. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and I'm definitely not going to pretend to be good with money. But if I was making $80,000 a year for 35 years, and he was making much more than that for longer. If I was making $80,000 a year for 35 years, yeah, I would hope that I would have $1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
That's not weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's not weird at all. And it's also not an elitist position to pay your government officials a better than average wage. Reason being, you don't only want the super rich in government. You don't only want people who can afford to take a job that doesn't pay Otherwise, you're only going to have that. That's why I actually hate it when, guys like Donald Trump say, well, I'm not going to take a salary. That shouldn't be an option. It's not an option. You get the money whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
Give it to charity if you want. I don't care. Ross Perot was one of the first ones that did that. I'm not going to take a salary. Well, if that's a selling point for you, for the American people, that you're only going to vote for people that won't take a salary, well, then you're only going to have super rich people.
Yeah, definitely don't be fooled by that talking point by those types of politicians. Like, if
you only want 70-year-old billionaires
Yeah.
to run your country, well, then make it. Then stop paying.
Yeah, I would hope Democrats wouldn't fall for that if Michael Bloomberg were president and saying that same bullshit too. Oh, I'm not going to take a salary.
Oh,
Yeah.
Think of all the great the American people can do with that extra $450,000. Yeah, nothing. Nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. It means absolutely
Because you're going to
nothing.
have no say whatsoever too on what happens with that money.
Right. Yeah, it's silliness all around. But hey, we said we were going to try to keep this show to an hour. We failed. Do we have a news section tonight?
Yeah, we do. And I wanted to get to this during Loud's Tape. We just ran out of time. We saw this before in music, but Whitney Houston's estate announced a hologram tour and new music. Now, I think this is something that Tupac did during I think it was Coachella, but yeah, Whitney Houston is joining. This comes from Noisy. Whitney Houston is joining a long list of celebrities who will receive, let me see here, holograms created in their image. Tupac performed at Coachella in 2012, and Roy Orbison even had his own tour last year, 30 years after his death. Now, Pat Houston's sister-in-law and executor of the singer's estate shared her plans for the late singer in an interview with the New York Times. According to the interview, the estate is negotiating a Broadway play in addition to organizing a hologram tour paired with a new album and unreleased music. I guess that's the future, though, of music. And
I'm not super interested in this. I don't have a problem with the hologram thing. Like, if one of my favorite people who have passed away, if they did this, I'm not saying that I would or wouldn't see it. It might be interesting. It might be cool. Just the idea of going to a stadium and hearing the music is cool to some degree. One thing I can't stand, and again, if people want to buy it, if people want to eat it up, it's cool. I can't stand a dead person has a new album coming out, because it's shit. It's the garbage that they did not want released. Just Nirvana did this. Was it Muddy Banks of Wishkah? Was that album? I feel like it is a slap in the face to the dead performer to release the stuff that they knew existed and purposely did not want released.
yeah,
I mean, those songs, I'll use the Nirvana example. They weren't even good enough in the eyes of Kurt Cobain. Maybe you like them. Maybe some of those songs out there, maybe people dig them. That's cool.
who wasn't opposed to releasing trash?
Right, right. Those weren't even good enough to be track number 15 on In Utero. You know what I mean? There's 14 tracks on the album In
That's an
Utero.
excellent point.
It is okay. Back then, and this is still true for the most part, a CD had the capability of being 74 minutes long. We all knew that back then. In Utero is not 72 and a half minutes long. If he wanted one more song on it, like if he wanted one of those songs, like he thought, it's a decent song. It's not great, but, I mean, this is the album that has Tourette's on it, which is just, a minute and 45 seconds of him screaming unintelligibly. I kind of like that song, but it's just junk though. It's just him goofing around. If he thought one of these songs was worth a damn, it'd have been like, know what? Let's take this. Let's just make it track 9. Let's squeeze it in right before All Apologies and throw it on. I mean, somebody might dig it, but no, that's not the case. That is not the case at all. These were junk, and the same with the Beatles. Remember the song they released? It's like that was John Lennon screwing around in his basement. It's probably like 3 joints in, just like him screwing around. If he thought that was worth a damn, it'd have been on an album.
Yeah.
It would have been somewhere. It appeared somewhere. You could maybe make an argument for there was these 3 songs that so and so was still perfecting, and they were gonna be their next release songs. But that's never the case. It's just some garbage, and that's what these songs are gonna be for Whitney Houston. That her screwing around in a studio, and then listening to it afterwards and thought, let's trash that. I don't like it. Nothing I can do for that. I mean, really, these people released albums after this was out, and they had no desire, 0 desire to put these songs, to have these tracks be included on an album, even as a filler.
Yeah.
Even as a filler song. So
no, I agree.
So I can't stand it when they do that, and I think it's insulting, because for some reason they didn't want that song out.
Mm-hmm.
They either thought it was junk, they didn't like the message, whatever it was. Who knows what it was? We'll never know what it was.
I'd love to see Prince's reaction to any new songs released from from him.
He would be furious.
Oh man, yeah.
He would be furious. And Prince is somebody I'm a huge fan of. If they did a hologram tour of Prince, a night of Prince music, okay, that might be kind of cool. I could get on board with that, as long as it wasn't $1 zillion or something.
Which it would be.
Yeah, it would probably. But I could, all right, hey, it's just an evening of Prince songs? Cool. I mean, I'm somebody that, even with locally, I like cover bands. I like tribute bands. Mm-hmm. That's fun, just hey, even if they're not great, it's an evening of some Led Zeppelin music. Let's give it a shot. Why not? That could be fun. But that I can get on board with. But the releasing new music in air quotes, dumb.
All right, moving along here. Alice in Chains. Jerry Cantrell told BBC Radio 1's Rock Show with Daniel P. Carter which Alice in Chains songs he's most proud of, and this is what he goes on to say. I mean, I guess I feel the same way about our music as I would feel about trying to single one song out of the whole musical experience of one fan. I really couldn't do that. I'm really proud of everything we've ever done. Again, it seems like he's trying to opt out of the question, but he actually goes on to say, Man in the Box means a lot because it was our first big hit. Rooster, 7 minutes, I wrote that for my dad. Check My Brain, that was a gigantic hit too, and kind of heralded the coming back of this band. Cantrell went on to include the title track from AIC's most recent album, Rainier Fog. Rainier Fog is kind of this punky metal kind of thing. That's kind of the thread and the theme of the title of the record and where we started, where we recorded it, kind of coming full circle back to where we started. So, Jerry Cantrell's favorite songs to sum everything up: Man in a Box, Rooster, Check My Brain, and Rainier Fog. What do you think, Josh?
I'm a huge Jerry Cantrell fan, by the way. I think he's a cool dude. But another thing that irritates me that musicians do a lot, Rick Springfield did this. Not that I'm a big Rick Springfield fan, but again, he was on Drew and Mike's show a couple weeks ago. And they just kind of asked the question. They're like, hey, I'm sure you've been introduced to Jesse's Girl a million times because that's what they're playing. Like, what would you like to be introduced to? And he instantly went to, the song I'm most proud of is this new song off my album. They're trying to sell their new crap.
Yeah.
And I don't buy it. I don't buy it. So when Jerry Cantrell says that, I believe him with Rooster and Man in the Box. And maybe there are some good songs on
two of their biggest hits.
Yeah. But when somebody says, the song I'm most proud of is this new song we made, it's like, bullshit. Bullshit. It is not. I don't care. I'm sorry. When I see a classic rock band like that and they start playing the song off their new record, that's when I go to the bathroom. I mean, it is. I'm sorry. It just one of my favorite people in music, and this made me respect him more, is Alice Cooper. And whenever I've heard him interview when he's going on tour, they say, hey, are you going to be playing stuff off the new record? He's like, no, I know nobody wants to hear that stuff. they just don't.
It's true, for the most part.
He's like, that's not what people want to hear.
No.
He goes, if it starts selling like crazy and people end up really liking it, then yeah, of course. You know. But no, I play the songs people want to hear.
Moving along here. Did you watch any Game of Thrones?
No. Never have seen it.
Neither did I, but apparently the last season was utter...
Yeah, people were really
was pretty
hating
bad,
on it.
yeah. fact, there's a petition going around on change.org titled "Remake Game of Thrones Season 8 with Competent Writers." It has secured more than 1.3 million signatures. Not that they are actually going to do that. I know there's some spin-offs and a prequel planned to go into production, but Sophie Turner, the Queen of the North, who portrayed Sansa Stark, I believe that's how you say it, isn't having any of it. She goes on to say, all of these petitions and things like that, I think it's disrespectful to the crew and the writers and the filmmakers who have worked tirelessly over 10 years and for 11 months shooting the last season, she said. Like 50-something night shoots. So many people work so hard on it, and for people just to...
Hang on, let me grab my violin.
Yeah, no kidding. Just to rubbish it because it's not what they want to see is just disrespectful. Yeah, who gives a shit?
No, it might be disrespectful. It might be disrespectful. That actually doesn't mean it's wrong.
No. I don't even think it's disrespectful.
I mean, when you're watching your sports team, I'm going to use this analogy. When you're watching your sports team play, and let's see, okay, say you're a Golden State Warriors fan. Mm-hmm. They're big right now, and this doesn't happen that often, but Steph Curry has a crap night. And you go out the next day and you say, Steph Curry sucked last night. I don't care what he's done in the past. That's unacceptable. He looked like crap. He played like crap. He was garbage. Is that disrespectful?
No.
Well, yeah, it's disrespectful.
I don't think it is.
It's rude. It's disrespectful, but it's true. It's true. Just because you're saying something, I mean, yeah, to be respectful is to just say, but Game of Thrones, they work so hard, and yeah, I didn't care for it, but it was it's such an achievement. No, if you don't like it, you're allowed to say you don't like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, whether it's disrespectful or not, you're allowed to say that. Do you know what sucks in it from my perspective? They claim that, Game of Thrones... Again, I don't know. I didn't see it. But they claim that Game of Thrones, when it went off the books, was excellent for all these years. And then they kept going. The books ended, but they did another season. And that these writers were terrible. Well, those writers that wrote for this season, those are the guys that just signed up for the new Star Wars trilogy, which means that it's probably gonna suck.
Oh no,
it's gonna be garbage.
Wait, there's another Star Wars trilogy coming out?
Yeah, and the guys who did this season of Game of Thrones are doing it because they signed.
What's this new trilogy gonna be about?
It's gonna be. It's not. They say it's not gonna be 10, 11, 12. It's gonna be like prequel, like maybe the Old Republic is the big theory. They're pretty much saying for sure that it's not going to be 10, 11, 12, but it is going to be a trilogy in the Star Wars universe.
So prequel to before the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, like way before it. So maybe the Old Republic is a thing that keeps popping up, but that's never been confirmed. I don't know if that's just what people kind of maybe want or what, but...
That's what's most important in all of this is what happens with Star Wars.
Exactly.
Because who gives a shit about Game of Thrones?
I don't.
Really? No, I don't either.
I was with some people last Friday. We were seeing the Tolkien movie, which was decent. It was kind of cool. It's just a biopic thing, on J.R.R. Tolkien. But Game of Thrones came up, and I was there with the guy who's a young kid who is a big nerd like me, and somebody mentioned like, oh, have you seen Game of Thrones? And none of us there had, and he was just like, Game of Thrones, it's Lord of the Rings for normies. And I was just like, yeah, I'm using that. I like that. Yeah, Game of Thrones it's just Lord of the Rings for normies.
It's true.
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of Lord of the Rings either.
I love Lord of the Rings, books and movies.
Let's see. Is there anything else here that
Hobbit movies? Okay.
Let's see here. Is there anything else? First reactions to Team Sonic Racing are in. I hope this doesn't have any. I hope it's not the same reaction to the Sonic movie that was coming up. Did you hear that?
They were hating on that big time.
It looks pretty cool, though.
I didn't have an issue with it.
No, I'm talking about the Sonic Racing.
Sonic Racing.
Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. I mean, it's like Mario Kart, but whatever.
Why does Sonic need a cart to go fast? Can't he just run?
Yeah, that's true. And why did they just put Sonic in Mario Kart?
I don't know.
It's the same thing now.
Yeah, I mean he's in Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Anyways, But yeah, I really didn't have a
Is
problem.
this like the modern incarnation of like the Diddy Kong racing, where they like tried to like spin off Mario Kart?
Maybe.
with like a different cast.
She didn't need to.
Yeah.
You didn't need to. Just add it to Mario Kart. Who gives
Yeah.
a shit?
Yeah.
No,
Maybe
I
that's
did,
what they'll do. That's what they eventually did with Diddy Kong.
yeah. I didn't have a problem with the new Sonic trailer either, really.
I didn't either. It was
No.
there was nothing to love or to hate on.
There's so much backlash, though. I think they're actually changing the way Sonic looks in it.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
No, it doesn't bother me
It's
either.
just gonna be a goofy little movie
It's
anyway.
it's fanboys though, man.
I know.
That's what it is.
I know fanboys are.
Fanboys suck.
They do. They really do suck, and I know that without them you wouldn't have so many of these things either. But yeah, they really do suck. And I know I've been accused of being a fanboy, especially with Star Wars, but you know, I don't know. I never was until the new movies came out and they sucked. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know.
And to add on to that too, I mean, fanboys are going to weigh in on Robert Pattinson being named the new
Yes.
Batman. Who cares?
Yeah, let's
Give it a shot.
Yeah,
Let's see what
if it's any
happens.
good.
Let's see what happens with it.
The only reason I'm annoyed with Robert Pattinson Batman has nothing to do with Robert Pattinson. It's just that I'm just so sick of them rebooting Batman.
Yeah.
You know,
But you see, that's a legitimate gripe, though.
right. I mean, I had the same issue with Ben Affleck, and I kind of like Ben Affleck as Batman. I didn't
No,
really
it
have a
wasn't
problem
bad.
with him.
bad.
But again, yeah, the fanboys screwed that up too, though. You know, they're so highly critical that it just. Guys, just after a while, they say, screw it. You know, how long is a millionaire supposed to stick around and take all this abuse?
You know what, too? I'm sure fucking people had problems with Christian Bale being Batman when it was first proposed, and Christian Bale was arguably the best Batman there
Right.
is. I'm willing to give Robert Pattinson a shot and see how it goes.
Do you know who they didn't have a problem with? Was Adam West, because they didn't have fanboys back then. And people are just like, oh, really? They're making a Batman show? That might be cool.
And you know
Been
what?
reading that stuff since 1939.
And the type of actor that Adam West, turned out, the type of guy that he turned out to be. I mean, if if Adam West was alive and was a young guy and they cast him as Batman now,
oh my God,
people would be throwing a fit.
Right.
Anyways, Josh, that's it.
Yeah, Patterson will still be better than George Clooney. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, but you know what? You said that George Clooney was a good Bruce Wayne, but a bad Batman.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's
more
that
than
works.
anything, that movie was just terrible.
No,
It didn't matter. It wasn't actually George Clooney's fault.
I would like to see. Well, I don't want to see it now, just because. But I would have liked to see George Clooney take on that role, with good writers and a good good script, a good screenplay and everything like that. But obviously, we're not going to see that.
If they had the exact script of the Batman, the one with Jack Nicholson, or even Batman Begins with Christian Bale, and they did that with George Clooney, it very well may have been just as good a movie.
Or even the one with Val Kilmer.
Yeah,
I mean, put George Clooney in Val Kilmer's spot.
Might have been just as good.
But Val Kilmer wasn't a bad Batman either. I thought he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, could have been just as probably would have been just as good.
It was the movie that was ass.
Yeah,
not
the movie was terrible. Movie was terrible.
Absolute garbage.
But that's it, Josh.
That is it. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. For those of you that caught Loud State, thanks for tuning into that. For those of you that were just here for the Xcast, thanks for the viewership. And we will see you next week, where we have Politics of the Empire, discussing socialism, and we'll also be back right after that with webisode number 102 of the Xcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great week.
See you next time.